Welcome to Late Night Story. When the world goes silent and shadows stretch longer, some stories awaken, whispered only to those still awake. So put on your headphones, turn down the lights, and let me guide you through the quiet hours. If you're listening alone, you're exactly where you need to be. If everyone can leave a comment to let me know where you are listening from in the world, don't forget to subscribe before you drift too far into the dark.
Story 1. There's something wrong with my laundry room. I'll start with the rule my apartment manager wrote in bold Sharpie on the door to the laundry room. Do not do laundry after 10 p.m. That was it. No explanation. Not quiet hours or out of order. Just a command. I thought it was ridiculous. I work late. I don't have time to wash clothes at 6 p.m. with all the stay-at-home residents fighting for machines. So yeah, I broke the rule. That was my first mistake. My second mistake was assuming the worst thing that could happen in a laundry room was shrinking a sweater. The laundry room was in the basement. One hallway, one flickering light, and 4 beat-up machines older than me. The air always smelled damp, like moldy towels. Each machine had these thin scratches along the metal, like something had clawed at them. I ignored all of that. I tossed my clothes into washer number 2, started the cycle, and sat on the cracked plastic chair scrolling my phone. I heard a second washer start. I didn't press it. No one else was there. The pipes groaned as water poured in. I looked up. Washer number 4 was running. Its lid was closed. Nothing inside. I froze listening. WHRR. The sound felt wrong. Like the machine wasn't just spinning, but breathing. Then I heard it. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it was definitely coming from machines. I told myself I was tired. That old pipes make weird sounds. That apartments are creepy at night. I grabbed my damp laundry and went upstairs before the cycle even finished. But the next day, my clothes smelled like something else. Not mildew, not detergent. Skin, like warm, damp skin, freshly peeled. I rewashed everything during normal hours. The smell clung. That night, I dreamed of something shifting inside machines, pressing its face against the glass, watching. The second night, I broke the rule again. I told myself I didn't believe in stupid signs or superstitions. I loaded washer number 2. I hovered over the buttons. Don't, someone whispered behind me. I spun around. No one was there. The basement door was still closed. I was alone. I tried to laugh it off, but my hands were shaking when I pressed start. Water gushed in, and then a second machine started again. This time, all 4 machines turned on, all at once. Whirring, sloshing, thundering. Lids closed. Empty. No, not empty. The lids rattled, like something inside was pushing up against them. I backed up slowly. The machines vibrated harder and harder until they were shrieking, metal grinding on metal. The scratches on their surfaces lengthened, deepened, fresh. Something was carving its way out. Then all at once, silence. Every machine stopped, and all 4 lids lifted slowly in unison, as if waiting for me to look inside. I turned and ran. I tried to tell the apartment manager the next morning. She was a short older woman with iron gray hair, always in a bun. Her name was Mrs. Lorenz. She'd lived there forever. I told her the machines were malfunctioning. She stared at me with these tired, heavy eyes. You use it after 10 p.m., she said. No emotion, just fact. How did you? You must follow the rule, she said and stepped closer. Too close. Some things wake up when they hear the spin. Some things? I asked, laughing nervously. What does that even mean? She leaned in and whispered, they remember their owners. I left before she could say anything else, but her words dug into me. They remember their owners. What did that even mean? Over the next week, things got worse. Every night at 10:03 p.m. exactly, the pipes in my walls would shudder. I'd hear muffled machine sounds beneath my floor, even when no one was using the laundry room. I could hear whispering through the vents when I tried to sleep. Laundry smells changed. I'd open my drawers and smell other people. Perfume, sweat, cologne I'd never worn. I started finding threads stuck to my shirts, long dark strands of fabric that weren't from anything I owned. Once I pulled a sweater over my head and felt something sharp scrape my neck. I yanked it off. There, woven into the collar, was a single black hair. Not mine. The whispers got louder. Sometimes they said my name. I slept with my lights on. I started sending my laundry to a wash and fold service miles away. I thought I was safe. But then my clothes started appearing back in my laundry basket. Damp, warm, recently washed, as if someone or something had already done my laundry for me. I decided I was done being afraid of a damn washing machine. I was going to record proof, catch it on video, show the manager, show the world. Something was wrong in that basement. So I waited until 10:15 p.m. and I went back down. The hallway felt longer that night. The lights hummed louder. My heartbeat drowned out everything. I opened the laundry room door. All four machines were running. Lids down, spinning, without anyone there. I pulled out my phone and hit record. See? Look, no one's here and there. Wham! One of the dryers stopped. The door clicked open. Inside, pitch black. I stepped closer. My video light caught something pale and soft inside. Fabric. A sheet? No, not a sheet. A shape. My shape. A fabric figure curled in the drum of the dryer. Limbs unsettlingly long. Torso stitched together with uneven thread, like someone learning to sew skin. The head was a rough oval. No face. I couldn't breathe. Then I saw it. Woven through the seams was hair. My hair. Not similar. Not close. My exact shade. My exact curl pattern. I stumbled back, choking on air. The other three dryers clicked open. 3 more fabric bodies. All shaped like people. All stitched with hair. Their heads slowly turned toward me, even though they had no faces. I ran. I don't even remember getting back into my apartment. I locked the door and crawled into the shower, scrubbing until my skin turned raw. I tried to cut my hair off. I couldn't. My hand shook too badly. Somewhere below me, I heard the washers running again. I didn't sleep. I sat in bed with every light on, staring at the floor. At 3 a.m., something started moving in the walls. Not mice, not pipes. Something heavy, dragging, slow. My bedroom floorboards vibrated. Then I heard my laundry basket slide across the floor. I whipped around. The basket was sitting by my bedroom door, full of freshly washed clothes. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stared. I never put those clothes there. I had locked my door. I had not slept. Something put them there. My phone buzzed. A video notification. Sent from me. What? I opened it. It was footage of me sleeping, from inside my bedroom. I threw my phone across the room. Something knocked on my door. Not the front door. My closet door. 3 slow knocks. I held my breath. It knocked again. Then, in a voice that sounded like mine, wet, warped, wrong. Let me out. I ran. I drove to a hotel. Checked in under a fake name. Blocked every vent with towels. Slept with the TV on. The next morning, I got an email from Mrs. Lorenz. Come to the basement. Before 10 p.m. I should have ignored it. I should have moved states, changed my name, burned all my clothes and started over. Instead, I went, curiosity is stronger than fear. That's how people die in horror movies. I get it now. When I reached the basement, the lights were off. The laundry room door was open. Mrs. Lorenz was standing inside, staring at the machines. They like you, she said without turning. Why? I whispered. Because you didn't follow the rules, she sighed. Just like me, I stepped in. She looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were so tired they looked bruised. When this building was a factory, workers died in those machines, she said. They got caught, crushed, spun until they weren't people anymore. The machines remember the ones they take. They remake them, stitch them back together, with whatever they can find. I shook my head. That's insane. She pointed at the machines. Every tenant that broke the rule disappeared. The building always had vacancies. No one questioned it, because the machines cleaned up after themselves. My blood went cold. The missing residents, the weird noises, the fabric bodies. Why didn't you stop them? I whispered. She stared at her trembling hands. I tried. I stayed. I thought if I learned their patterns, I could keep people safe. But I can't do it anymore. I'm tired. She looked at me with sadness. They've chosen you. You broke the rule. They want you to stay, to help them grow. I'm not staying. I snapped, stepping back. She stepped aside. The machines roared to life. All four lids slammed shut, and then slowly rose open again. Four fabric bodies sat inside, one in each washer, all shaped like me, each one closer, more accurate, more complete, smooth fabric skin, my height, my build, my posture. One had my birthmark. One had my mole on the shoulder. One had hair already sewn in, thick, dark, curls, exactly like mine. They were replacing me. No, they were practicing. I turned to run. Mrs. Lorenz grabbed my arm. Hard. Her grip was surprisingly strong. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's the only way. What? She shoved me toward the machines. I stumbled and hit the floor. The nearest fabric body tilted its head. Even though it still had no eyes, the machines began their spin cycles. Not empty, not closed. They were spinning for me. The fabric bodies slid out of the machines and stepped onto the floor. They moved like marionettes, limbs jerking, heads twitching, strings of thread dragging behind them like veins. One opened its mouth. I didn't see teeth. I saw needles. They reached for me. I scrambled back, but the floor was slick with spilled detergent. My hand slid. My legs kicked uselessly. A fabric hand touched my ankle. Cold, damp, soft and too strong. I screamed. Mrs. Lorenz knelt beside me, her eyes wet. I followed the rule too late, she whispered. I belonged to them the moment I heard them. And now so do you. I looked up at her in horror. Her sleeves slid down. Her arms were stitched. Pale fabric. Seam lines. Thread veins. She smiled sadly. I kept them company for so long, she said. Now I can finally rest. She stood. Her skin sagged loosely. Like a costume, the human part of her stepped away. The fabric part stayed behind. She had already been replaced. She was one of them. She was their voice, their caretaker, their lord. She walked to the door. My shift is over, she said. She turned off the lights. Darkness swallowed everything. The machine screamed. The fabric bodies swarmed me. Needles bit into my skin. Threads slid through my veins. They weren't just copying me. They were unraveling me, stitch by stitch. I felt myself coming apart, and something else being built in my place. Something hollow, something obedient, something that would wait in the dark for the next tenant who broke the rule. I don't know how long it's been. Time doesn't work right here. I hear the machines constantly, spinning, washing, breathing. I feel myself stretch when they pull the threads tight. I hear my own voice from the dryer's whisper. I see through fabric eyes. I wait for 10 p.m. I wait for the door to open. I wait for you to bring your laundry down. I hope you don't. I hope you follow the rule. Do not do laundry after 10 p.m. because if you do, the machines remember their owners, and they're still missing a few pieces. Story 2, 10-foot grin. I'm losing my mind. I know it. I've been reading posts here for the last few hours, hoping someone has an answer. But I can't tell if I'm still hallucinating or if I am in real danger. My name is Simon, and 6 days ago, I quit taking Adderall cold turkey. I knew the risks. I had been taking it for 14 years, since I was 5, and my doctor and my mother's prompting wouldn't help me wean off of it. I did my research, and I knew the risk of stopping cold turkey. I saw the potential for psychosis, heart issues, and even death. I just figured they were unlikely outcomes and side effects, like with taking any kind of medication. I was wrong. The first couple of days were fairly normal to any time I had ever forgotten my pills, or just ran out and couldn't get them filled. Extreme hunger, foggy brain, no willpower, extreme fatigue ECT. But yesterday, the 5th day, I started seeing things. At first it was only in the dark. I'd see faces, bodies, and anything that had a humanoid shape really took form. What made this worse is we just moved as a family, right as I turned 19. We moved in with my uncle, who had just bought this large Victorian house that was 3 stories tall and had a large unfinished basement. I am completely unfamiliar with the house and its various rooms and sounds. So, when I see something, it is usually pretty startling. I do my best to ignore and not engage with anything I see, because I read that engaging with hallucinations is a great way to lose touch with the real world and spiral into madness. Now you are caught up to today, which other than debilitating fatigue, being in and out of restless sleep, the daytime was hardly eventful. Nothing out of the ordinary from others' experiences of withdrawal until around 8 p.m. tonight. It's winter and it's already dark outside. With the shadows and darkness came the faces, and this time a voice. Barely a whisper at first. So much so that I wasn't even sure I heard anything at all. My bedroom is really one giant room I share with my 2 younger brothers, but it has a wall that can be pulled across, separating us into separate rooms. When it first occurred, I swore I heard my name being called. I looked up over my brothers, Will and Silas, both of them wearing headphones. Faces lit up only by the lights of their phone screens. Faces and various amorphous beings floating around them. I just kind of put out of my mind until I heard soft footsteps, quickly running down the hall. Thinking could have been my mother, although weird because I definitely heard Simon and my mom and family all call me Sim. I got up, opened the door into the hall, and peered out into the dark. Down the long, dark hallway, I could see the soft light of the water dispenser on the fridge, but little else. Confused because this was the direction the footsteps had been in, I stepped out into the hallway towards the kitchen. Mom. I called out, my voice echoing down the hall. No answer. I shuffled my way through the hallway, hands sliding along the walls, feeling for a light switch. I really ought to do a better job of committing their placements to memory. I got maybe 10 feet down the hallway, about halfway to the kitchen when I saw it. A figure a little different than the rest. I couldn't really tell its limbs apart from the rest of the dark background, but could vaguely see that it was around 10 foot tall, its mouth spread into a wide grinning smile, and its eyes, which were a bright fluorescent white. I froze in my tracks. My blood is pounding in my ears. It began moving towards me, not walking, but unfurling itself with long, lanky steps, like a spider stretching across the floor. Its mouth opened, showing jagged teeth spanning all the way to the back of its mouth. A scream erupted out of it, so loud it made the floor vibrate, covering my ears, wincing in pain. I began walking backwards, my hand still tracing walls, feeling, hoping for a light switch, still believing the light would save me, bring me back to reality. The monster reached the archway, and its legs began to stretch out, lowering its body to fit into the lowered ceiling of the hallway. I gave up on finding a light switch and quickly turned around, running back towards my room, seeing the light coming from underneath the door. As I reached the door and turned the knob, I could hear its soft and quick footsteps rapidly approaching me. I wrenched the door open and slammed it shut behind me. Both my brothers looked up at me with wide eyes, taking off their headphones. Can you maybe not slam the doors in the middle of the night? Mom and everyone else is asleep, asked her quietly. Also turn that light off, added Silas. Did either of you hear that? Feel that? I said in between heavy breaths, bracing myself against the door. The only thing I heard was you being an ass, retorted Silas, put his headphones on. I turned my gaze to Will, hoping for at least something from him. But all I got was an inquisitive, worried stare that lasted for a few seconds before he too put his headphones back on and resumed watching his phone. No, just me? Well, fuck me then, I guess, I muttered under my breath. I stayed braced against the door for a few moments longer, wondering whether or not my 135 pounds and a door would have been enough to stop that abomination from my nightmares anyways. I regained my composure, turned on my TV before I shut out the light, jumped into my bed and closed my eyes. My head was throbbing, and I felt like I had just run a marathon. I took some deep breaths and tried to think, what the hell was that? The rest of these hallucinations didn't have real forms. They quickly moved in and out of existence in front of my eyes. They weren't really scary, and I had been adjusting to the fact that if it was dark and I turned my head, I was going to see something. But this, what was that? Am I crazy? Even as I typed this under my blanket with my laptop, I can hear my name being called softly. This time, though, I can tell it's coming from right outside the door. All right, I'm signing off. Concentrating to type this out was a feat of willpower I truly did not believe I have right now. If anyone has anything, ideas, experiences, please reach out, comment. If anything else happens, I'm sure you'll hear from me again. The small hallway made way to a dining room. The shadows were dancing on the walls as people clapped around the table and sang. On the table was a cake with pink and purple frosting, sprinkles, and some writing I couldn't really decipher. The song carried on, but was hoarser than I remembered it. People were smiling, swaying from side to side at the person sitting in front of the cake. The lighting was dim and pleasant, its only source being the candles. The people around were a little tense, but overall it reminded me of my own birthdays as a kid. Some boxes lay scattered on the floor. I tried to take a better look at them, or the kid. The child looked like a young boy, with a big birthday hat on. He, I think, could have been 10 or 12, and his face was round and stretched into a big smile. I stared for a while at the teeth. I don't know what prompted me to make that observation, but he had adult teeth, which were rotten and yellow, sticking out his mouth in abnormal directions. His eyes were wide and red, as if he'd been crying for a while. I don't remember seeing him blink at all. In the minutes that I watched that felt like hours, he looked really shaken and tense. I'd never seen a child like that before. Never in my life. All the courage I'd had before peeking through the door had evaporated. I must have zoned out watching the scene when I was pulled away from my trance. The kid shifted his eyes from the candles, which had now almost completely melted, and looked straight at me. I felt seen like I'd never been before. My heart completely collapsed, leaving a painful knot in my chest as I made eye contact with the child. His smile slowly faded, turning into a grimace. I wanted to run, but I was somehow frozen in place. Suddenly, he blew out the candles, and the room was engulfed in darkness. I heard something shuffle in the dark towards me, gasped and shut the door behind me as I practically jumped down the stairs. The shuffling and scratching followed. I gripped the door and slammed it behind me just as something slammed into it from the other side. Eyes wide and unfocused. I barely managed to lock it as the banging started. The song upstairs had stopped. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was completely dark now, but I could make out the details of the face I'd looked at before in the dimly lit dining room. Only, now we were at eye level, which was impossible, since that had been a kid. Had it? Or had it been just a person? The more I thought, the more I realized I had no idea what prompted me to assume it had been a kid. The round face? Childish clothing? Trying to decipher the memory meant analyzing every detail of that horrible face. A thing I didn't want to do. The banging turned to scratching. I yelled I was going to call the police. My voice died in my throat. The banging was so strong that it was undoubtedly going to break down my door. Suddenly, I heard a distinct sound upstairs. The banging and scratching instantly stopped. It was a door opening, the elderly couple's door. Hey, what on earth are you doing? It is the middle of the night. I watched through the peephole as the kid not a kid walked away from my door, upstairs. Quit it before I call the police. It's enough that I have to hear your kid's tantrums every day, lady, but dash. The voice abruptly stopped. I listened, barely breathing. No scream, no sound. Nothing. Faint scratching, then shuffling. Then a faint cry that sounded more like 4 sobs. I silently dialed up the police and barely managed to whisper what was going on. A afraid that I might be heard. As I was detailing the problem, I looked through the peephole, once again to be greeted by that face, grimaced, eyes bloodshot and sunken into the head. "You're welcome to join next year. That's why we left the door open," came the voice of an adult, out of the face of a 12-year-old. I gasped and ducked, as if that would save me. The police came in around half an hour, which was an insanely long amount of time. They went upstairs and sealed off the entirety of the second floor. They refused to give me details. I had to wait for the headlines and accept some vague answers from the numerous phone calls I'd given since. "Miss, there were never kids living upstairs. 2 of them were grown-ups, but 2 of them were pretending to be kids." They refused to tell me what had happened to the elderly couple. They barely mumbled something that included kidnapping, massacre, disembowelment. Some of the victims, which have been many, were hostages made to play along. The presents were just pieces of flesh, toys made of bones with bows on them. One of them was a teeth necklace. I'm going through a really hard time now. Try and move all my stuff without having to go to that place too often. I can't sell it or rent it out, maybe to some true crime fanatic. I moved in with my parents, but I asked them to add extra locks to their doors and windows and security cameras everywhere. They assumed I was paranoid and suffering from PTSD. I let them believe that. However, I'd watched the security footage of that night, showing the outside of my door. The birthday boy I'd spoken to hadn't gone back upstairs. He just crawled to the window and jumped out. I don't know where he is now. I hope it goes both ways. Story 3. I found my roommate under my bed. Then he vanished. I used to think I was a good judge of people, that I could tell when something was off. Now I'm not so sure. When Tom moved in, I didn't think twice. A friend of a friend had mentioned he needed a room, and my old roommate had just moved out. Rent's expensive, and Tom seemed normal enough when he came by to look at the place. Quiet, polite, even a little shy. We split rent, set up the Wi-Fi, went grocery shopping once together. He liked instant noodles and those cheap iced coffees. Simple guy. At first, living with him was easy. We'd say hi in the hallway. Sometimes eat at the same time, but mostly stayed out of each other's way. I liked that. I worked late shifts, so I often got home around midnight. The apartment was dark, calm, predictable, until it wasn't. The first thing I noticed was how often Tom was awake when I got home. I'd unlock the door, and he'd already be standing in the living room. No TV, no lights on, just standing there. The first few times, I thought I'd startled him, but he never jumped, never moved. He'd just look at me and smile faintly. "Couldn't sleep?" I asked once. "Yeah," he said, something like that. After that, I started hearing him walk around at night. Slow, steady steps up and down the hall. Sometimes he'd stop right outside my door. Just stand there. I knew because the old wood floors creaked whenever someone moved. I'd stare at the ceiling, frozen, waiting for the sound to stop. He never knocked. By morning, everything was normal again. He'd be sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal like nothing happened. When I tried to bring it up, he'd tilt his head slightly confused. "I was asleep," he said. "You sure you didn't dream that?" I started double-checking the locks at night, making sure my door was closed tight. But sometimes I'd wake up and it would be open, just a crack. Then came the smell that a faint metallic scent, like old blood or rust, drifting from his room late at night. I told myself it was pipes or food gone bad. I even tried to peek in once when he wasn't home, but his door was locked. After that, I started keeping my phone next to my bed, recording audio through the night. The first night, nothing. The second, soft noises. Breathing. Too close. Too human. The third, I heard my door open. When I listened back, my stomach dropped. The hinge squeaked, then a pause. And then a quiet voice, almost a whisper. "You sleep so still." I confronted him the next morning, shaking, voice barely steady. "Tom, were you in my room last night?" He smiled. Calm. Too calm. Why would I do that? His tone was light, almost playful. You should get more sleep, man. You're starting to sound paranoid. That night, I didn't sleep at all. At 2:47 a.m., I heard a faint sound again, a soft scrape beneath me at T1st. I thought it was in my head. Then I heard breathing, slow, deliberate, under my bed. I leaned over the edge, heart pounding, and saw two eyes staring back at me. I froze, couldn't move, couldn't scream. The eyes didn't blink. Then his voice, calm, quiet, way too close. I didn't mean to scare you. I jumped out of bed so fast I nearly fell. Tom crawled out from underneath, brushing dust off his clothes, as if this was normal. What the hell are you doing? I shouted. He blinked slowly. I just wanted to be close. What? He tilted his head. You always sleep with your back to the door. You're so quiet. I wanted to know what it's like to be that close to someone without them knowing. He said it so softly, like it was something tender, something intimate. I couldn't even breathe. He stood up, looked around my room like he was admiring it, and smiled faintly. I didn't hurt you, he said. Then he walked out, closing the door gently behind him. I sat there until sunrise, knife in hand, every sound amplified. When I finally opened my door, his room was empty. No clothes, no toothbrush, no trace he'd ever lived there. I called the landlord that morning. He sounded confused. There's only one tenant on the lease, he said. You. No one else was supposed to live there. I swear Tom was real. I met him. I spoke to him. There were dishes he used, receipts in his name. But now, it's like he never existed. I moved out a week later. I don't tell people why. I just say it was too quiet there. Sometimes, though, when I'm lying in bed in my new place, I swear I hear again that a faint scrape, that a slow breath, just beneath me. And I can't help thinking about what he said that night. I just wanted to be close. Story 4. I work as a lookout at a national forest. Does anyone know what a code black means? Peter, can you even see anything up there? Harry, the oldest yet least mature forest ranger, sat over the two-way, high on my perch in Tower 3. I had a full 360-degree view of a _____ national forest that stretched out to the horizon. This was a dumb joke he liked to ask every time I drew the short straw for this position. Yes, vision is clear. No smoke, no fires, no adverse weather conditions. Cool. Hey, can you see me flipping the double bird to you? He said this so often that I mouthed the words as he spoke. Harry, like stress or radiation, was fine in small doses. But God help you if you have a weekend shift with the man. That's a negative, I said. How's campsite duty? Slow. There are like 5 campers here, and 2 of them are hosts. Filth Hat Jack is back as host of the Western Loot. I can't stand that dude. He's not bad, a little gruff, but once you break through, he's still a little gruff. I said, try and fail to find something nice to say about Filth Hat Jack. Gruff like those goats from the fairy tale. Weren't they devils, or sold to the devil, or tricked the devil? I'm not up to date with my Billy Goat folklore. It's why they put you up in the tower. Meanwhile, the rest of us grounders are thinking of playing poker later. Ground squirrels, or grounders, was a nickname Harry made up for anyone not working in a lookout tower during their shift. It never made sense to me. Squirrels can climb trees, which are nature's towers, but the name stuck. Tower dwellers were named after the high-flying sandhill cranes, which inevitably got shortened to sandies. You all suck at poker, I said. You have to be able to bluff and lie to win. All the people on grounder duty are basically priests. Now me, I can spin yarns like the best of them. Hey, knit nuts, why don't you spin me a yarn about how you lost $100 last time we played? Guys, these two-way radios are for emergencies, Gwen said, her voice sounding more exasperated than usual. She was another Sandy set up in Tower 5, about 20 miles northwest of me. She had gifted kid vibes, which made sense, as she had been one, and was easily annoyed with the rest of us. But everyone loved her. Deep down, she loved us, too. But, like, really deep down. Called the Jurassic Park owner. We found insects in ancient amber deep. Gwenny, Harry said, dragging out her name. You promised not to play school marm today. Jorge is gone for the week. Let's enjoy a boss-free day. Gwen sighed. 1, I never promise anything. 2, you know I hate Gwenny. And 3, it was a troll in the Three Billy Goats gruff legend, she said before adding, oh. And 4, you're the absolute worst poker player in camp, Peter. Boom. Harry said. I couldn't see him doing his bull's horn hand charging at you move, but I knew he was doing it. This man was in his 50s. He had kids in college. Everyone knows Bud. Yeah, Gwen is right. These two-ways are for official business only. Sandy 3 out. Have fun with Filth Hat Jack, Gwen said. Sandy 5 out. I'll pray no sudden thunderstorms come rolling in, Harry said with a laugh. Grounder 1, over and out, baby. Suck my butt. Again, this man has a mortgage. When I get tower duty, I always bring a book or two. When you're up in the gentle rocking and quiet of the air, you can get a lot of reading done. I'm currently going through a series of horror movie tie-in novelizations. I just finished Alien and the Fog, and was looking forward to The Blob. I wanted to do a run of 40s pulp detective novels next. No, I don't have a girlfriend. Why do you ask? Anyway, after about an hour, my two-way came to life. Sandy 3, this is Sandy 5, you copy? Gwen was always so formal. Sandy 3 to Sandy 5, I copy. Hey Pete, you get any emergency calls in the last 10 or so minutes? Negative. What's up? The cabin's two-way started squawking a bit ago. First, it was just static, but then, well, it kind of sounded musical. Musical? How? Sounded like a kid's piano playing Mary Had a Little Lamb, I think. It repeated a few times before going silent. Maybe radio signals bleeding through? I thought that at first too, but haven't heard anything since. Maybe you have a fan out there that really wanted you to hear their rendition of a childhood favorite. If anyone knows I'm up here, I'm already in trouble. No one is scheduled to come out this way today. I wouldn't go speaking that out into the wider world, Gwen. I'm not alone. Pearl is here with me. We're attached at the hip, you know. Pearl was what she called her pistol. All of us carried something when we went out into the wild. In my civilian life, I'm not much a gun guy. Out here, though, I understand that it's an important tool in my tool bag. Don't want to be cornered by a wildcat and not have something to scare it away. Pearl is a straight shooter after all. The best. Let me know if you hear anything, huh? My intuition is pecking at me. Roger. If it comes back, try to record somewhat with your phone. Shit, that's a smart idea. Sometimes we non-gifted Sandys stumble into one. I regret telling you that all the flipping time, Pete. Sandy 5, out. Sandy 3, over and out. I hung up the microphone and walked over to the north-facing window. If the weather is clear, I can sometimes make out Tower 5 from here. It takes a minute to spot, but I always can because, as the old saying goes, there are no straight lines in nature. While not technically true, it's mostly true and a useful guide for spotters. The difference between Mother Nature and her wayward child, mankind. I scan the horizon for anything out of the ordinary, but everything looks serene. This view never changes, but it also never disappoints. The number of hours I've sat out on the catwalk, just staring out at the natural world, would astound you. To work as a ranger, you need to have not just a healthy fear and appreciation for the wild, but genuinely love it. I heard electronic squelches behind me and turned to see some of the lights on the cabin's two-way lighting up. I walked back over, picked up the handle, and spoke. Sandy 3, come back? Static broke through the speakers. But that was it. No words. No childhood songs. Nothing but grating static. I waited a bit to see if anyone would respond, but after 2 minutes of staring at a speaker, I determined it was nothing. I kicked back in my chair and dove back into my paperback. 2 pages later, Gwen came back. Sandy 3, this is Sandy 5. I groaned as I sat back up and grabbed the microphone. Go for Sandy 3. Peter, do you see something in the sky? Northwest. Trailing the long, coiled cord behind me, I walked to the window and looked in the direction she told me. I held my hand over my eyes to shield any glare, but still didn't see anything. I pressed a button. Negative. Can't see anything. What is it? I don't know. I was knitting, and I heard something whoosh over the tower. Sometimes, small planes zip closer than they should, but when I looked out, I didn't see anything. At first. Then, about 10 or so miles out, the sun reflected off something silver in the sky. Chopper? Sometimes the fire guys do test runs on clear days. Nothing on the schedule. I tried raising them on the radio, but no one responded. That wasn't ideal. You want the fire brigade to answer a call. That goes double if you're surrounded by living firewood. A spark could start an inferno that could eat through the entire forest at a speed that would make your head spin. Want me to try to hail them? Yes, she said. Her usually firm voice wavered a little. Pete, this thing is just hovering in the sky. Sometimes they'll do a training run without informing us. It's rare, but it happens. That has to be it. Has to be. Has to be, she echoed. Give me a second. Let me switch frequencies and call. I'll come right back. Sandy 5 out. I gave the sky another glance, but didn't see anything hovering. I knew Gwen. She was as straight a shooter as Pearl. If she said she saw something, she saw it. I flipped over to the fire emergency frequency and pressed a button. This is A_____ National Forest Lookout Tower 5. Does anyone copy? Silence. I tried again. And again. Nothing. I flipped to a few more frequencies and didn't get a reply. It was like they were ignoring us. I switched back to Gwen and filled her in. She wasn't happy. What the hell? What's going on? What if there's a fire? Is the thing still in the sky? Yep, not moving. Feels like I'm being watched. What's the bearing on your Osborne? The Osborne is a fire detecting tool equipped within every cabin. It's used to determine a location relative to the tower. It swivels 360 degrees and has an accurate topographical map at its center. When you sight smoke, you line up the crosshairs and find the degrees along the side. It's accurate enough with one tower, but more so if other towers can center in and cross-reference each other. 329 degrees and 48 minutes, Gwen said. Let me know what you see. I moved the Osborne to the bearing and took a gander through the crosshairs. My eyes are trained to follow along the ridges, so it took a second for me to adjust to the sky. At first, I didn't see anything with my naked eye. Then I did notice the sun glint off something. Oh, Gwen, I see it. Barely, but there's something there. So I'm not crazy? Well, that remains to be seen. But with this, you're good. I don't like that I can't get through to fire and rescue. That's never happened before. Try your cell? Maybe you can reach them that way. I tried. No signal. I usually have a few bars out here, but not now. Always when you need it the most, right? No kid. Oh shit. Pete, this thing is dropping. Falling or landing? Both? It's a quick, controlled descent. You see it. I didn't. I'd barely seen it in the air. If it was quickly falling out of the sky, I had no chance of seeing a thing. Negative. Shit. It just dipped behind the tree line. I'm filling out a smoke report. I don't know what else to do except follow protocol. Let me try to give them a call on my phone. I had a signal earlier. Hold on. I pulled my phone out, ready to dial, but noticed I didn't have any service. It wasn't even roaming, just blank, like cell towers have been erased. I tried restarting my phone, but it didn't change anything. I don't have service either. I said into the two-way. Any changes over there? I heard Gwen hit the button to speak, but she didn't say a word. Instead, I listened to her handheld two-way radio click several times, and sure enough, the beginning of Mary Had a Little Lamb started playing. Finally, she whispered, "Are you hearing this?" "I am." The song suddenly stopped and a calm, almost robotic voice started to speak. Gwen and I stayed quiet as churchgoers as a voice said, 777 Alpha Omega 6. Unknown, unknown, unknown. Repeat, 777 Alpha Omega 6. Unknown, unknown, unknown. The voice stopped, and my heart did as well. Seconds later, the tinny version of Mary Had a Little Lamb started playing again. What is that? Who is sending that out? It sounds like a code, like from a number station. Number station, as in secret messages to spies? Number stations? Spies or government officials. Maybe. I'm just guessing. It could be someone's idea of a weird prank. Maybe it's the fire and rescue teams just messing with us. I dated a guy in fire and rescue. Gwen said they don't have an ounce of sense of humor shared among them. I think this is legit, and I think it's bad. Sounds like a warning. And I don't think it's a coincidence it came after this thing showed up and landed. Gwen, we don't know what's going on. I think writing the report is a good idea. Want me to relay a message to the campsites? Get another ranger out there? Maybe you'll get lucky and Harry will get dispatched. I said, trying to lower the tension. Gwen may have sounded calm to the untrained ear, but I knew she was scared. Or, at the very least, unnerved. I was as well, but didn't want to share that. She laughed, but it sounded like it was Texas two-stepping with crying. Do you know he told me the other day that he thought, if given 6 months of training, he could make the Pro Bowler Tour? With nothing but alley balls. Maybe we should encourage it and give our ears a break. Actually, he said, I could throw cheese like a pissed-off Wisconsinite. Gwenny, she said, imitating his voice. That man has kids in college, Gwen. I said, that man watched 9/11 as it happened, she said. Oh, that's a good one. Our conversation was cut short when we both heard a low rumble and felt a slow rolling earthquake shake our towers. I grabbed onto my table as the entire cabin rocked back and forth, like a ship hit by a rogue wave. After what felt like 10 hours, but was actually just 30 seconds, the shaking stopped. Gwen, you okay? Jesus Christ. I think I heard something in the tower snap. What? I don't know. I was worried this whole thing was going to fall over. Was that an earthquake? Felt like it. When the hell has there ever been an earthquake here? As I made a mental note to look up if this area had ever had a recorded earthquake, I noticed the trees about a mile out violently snapped back and forth in a concentric circle like someone had dropped a pebble in water. The ring of shaking trees quickly spread out, and I felt a concussive wave before I heard it. Again, the tower shuddered from the blast. The northern windows shattered, and bits of glass came flying inward. I ducked under the desk with the cabin two-way to avoid Swiss cheese in my body, but several of the shards caught my arm. I winced in pain as the glass bit into my flesh. Not wanting to bleed out, I ripped off the sleeve of my shirt and did my best to staunch the bleeding. Once the blast passed, I shot up and turned to the southern window. You could physically see the concussive wave working its way through the trees toward the campsites. Gwen, you okay? No response. Gwen, please come back. Over. Nothing. Panic started to set in. If she were near the epicenter of that blast, there was a good chance her tower could have collapsed. She could be hurt or, well, I don't want to think that. I tried a third time with no response. My personal two-way squawked. It was Harry calling. He sounded equally nervous and confused. Sandy 3, this is Grounder 1. What the fuck was that? I don't know. You safe? I think so, but I can't get hold of Gwen. Oh shit, did you see anything? Any smoke? She saw something hovering in the sky that went down near her tower. We tried reaching out to fire and rescue, but they didn't respond. Something was hovering in the sky? Did I hear that right? Affirmative. It went down or landed. We also heard an odd. The cabin's two-way started to chirp. I turned up the speakers and heard clicking and growling. At first, it sounded random, but then I realized multiple things were clicking and growling. It was as if they were communicating with each other. There was a loud, high-pitched electronic squeal that made me slam my hands over my ears. It went on for 10 seconds, and I heard the rest of the glass in the cabin window crack, but not fall. When it stopped, I uncovered my ears, but that still didn't chase away the cobwebs. It sounded like my head had been underwater. My ears were swimming. I shook my head and used my thumb to pump at the opening in my ear to help pop them. I heard Harry yelling into my personal two-way. He was jabbering, and I had a hard time making out what he was saying. I took a second, centered myself, and listened. Jesus, Peter, can you hear me? Copy. Christ on a bike. What took you so long to respond? I heard something on the cabin two-way. It sounded like someone clicking, or what I imagine crickets would sound like if they could talk. Crickets talking? Son, did you hit your head? The cabin's two-way speaker came back to life. More clicking, but this was deliberate, as if it was signaling to someone. It sounded familiar, and I had no idea how that was even possible. At first, I couldn't make out what it was, but then it dawned on me. It was parroting back, "Mary had a little lamb." "The fuck?" I said, staring at the speaker. I glared at the little box, wishing to transform into a TV screen and show me what was making that noise. That's when I saw the object rise above the tree line and climb up into the blue sky. It waited a beat and then zipped towards me. "Oh shit," I said, diving under the desk. At speeds I didn't think possible, the craft whooshed over the tower, making it rattle to the foundations. Harry was going nuts over my two-way, rambling about something, but I didn't pay it any attention. Instead, I ran out onto my catwalk to see where this craft had gone to, if that was still even possible. As fast as it was traveling, it might be halfway around the world by now. As soon as I pushed open the door to the catwalk, the air around me felt heavy. It even made my moments slow, like astronauts walking on the moon. I wondered if hopping would make me move quicker. I glanced up, and everything in my vision was wavy, like when you see gas fumes in the daylight. There was nothing above me that I could see, but I knew it was there. That meant it would have to stop on a dime to be here. Nothing I knew could do that. From inside the cabin, the speaker started bleeding out feedback. At first, it was just noise, but it morphed into something I'd been hearing all day. "Mary had a little lamb." It made me realize that it was mirroring the message it must have heard at the same time Gwen and I had. In an instant, the song stopped, and the air around me returned to normal. Whatever had been lingering around was gone. Harry was calling out from my person two-way. I ran back inside and picked it up. "Peter, do you copy?" "Copy," I said. "Jesus, what's happening out there?" Before I could answer, my eyes flicked toward the north window, and I saw a thin ribbon of smoke on the horizon. It looked dangerously close to Gwen's tower. I felt my heart start to race. "Harry, there's smoke near Tower 5. I can't raise Gwen or fire and rescue." "Shit, say no more. I'll grab the UTV and head out. You have a bearing on the Osborne for me." I glanced up to where I'd seen the curl of smoke, but an entire bolt of smoke had replaced the ribbon. Or, honestly, more like a thick pea soup fog that had stretched for about a mile and was still going. No fire spread that quickly. It reminded me of those snake fireworks that always underwhelmed you as a kid. You light a small black circle, and as it ignites, it expands. At best, it coiled until it became a puff of nothing and blew away in the breeze. At worst, it stopped coiling after about 10 seconds and left a burn mark on your driveway. I had no idea what was going on here. "Jesus, Harry, I don't know what this is, but I'm not sure to fire." "Where is it?" "Across the horizon," I said, "and growing." "What?" The cabin's two-way came to life. Through the speaker, we heard a pre-recorded message from the Secretary of Agriculture, the person who oversees all the national forests. In a calm, measured tone, they said, "Rangers, this is a code black warning. Please remain in place and do not interfere with any military officials who may arrive on scene. If there are civilians present, please inform them that they are to remain in place and cannot leave. Anyone found fleeing this location will be considered hostile and subject to severe punishments. Repeat, this is a code black warning. Stay in place and do not interfere with any military officials. Thank you for your cooperation." It came and went like a mid-afternoon storm. I wasn't sure what the smoke or fog was, but I was certain it wasn't just a quickly spreading forest fire. This was something different. Gas attack? Small-scale nuclear device? Dimensional rift? My mind was racing. "Harry, what the fuck is a code black?" I have no idea. Why would they send out the military? Whatever the reason, it ain't good. Kid, I gotta get out of Gwen. If she's at the epicenter of this, who knows if she's still. He didn't finish, but we both knew what he meant. I thought nothing but that since she stopped responding. Yeah, go. Be safe, Harry. You know me, safety is my middle name. That and Big Dong, he said, trying to add levity to a tense situation. I gave Harry shit, but that was his true value. He cared about our well-being. I appreciated the attempt, but we were both too scattered to laugh. Grounder won out. I walked back out to the catwalk and stared out at the approaching fog. It was so thick that as it slowly advanced, the trees would just disappear from view. I thought about Gwen, and my guts twisted into pretzels. I had been concerned that the tower collapsed earlier, but now that seemed quaint. Was she still alive? Had whatever the cold black warning entailed harmed her? The pace at which the fog was approaching was increasing. I'd reluctantly have answers to those questions before too long. I swallowed hard and ran my hands through my sweaty hair. I wanted to do something to help, but I had no idea what I could even do. Would the military arrive soon? Would I be pressed into service? The cabin's two-way started squawking again. Then I heard a familiar voice whisper through the speaker. Sandy 3, this is Sandy 5. You copy? Gwen. I ran back inside and nearly ripped the two-way off the wall by yanking on the microphone. Gwen, are you okay? What's going on? Peter, I can't say much. They may hear me. Who? The creatures in the fog. I fell back down on the ground. I had a hard time breathing. The what? There are dozens of them. They're multiplying. What are they? SHHH. Don't speak, she whispered. I hear some at the base of the tower. I held my breath, praying she had closed and locked the access to the catwalk. If they went up into the tower, Gwen had nowhere to go. My heart raced and I felt like I might pass out. I drummed on the floor, praying I'd hear Gwen's voice again. They haven't figured out I'm in here yet, she whispered. So far, they stayed out of the tower. I wanted to respond, but I knew my voice coming out of her speaker would be a beacon that led to her. I stayed quiet. She had kept her finger depressed on the microphone button, and I could hear everything going on in her cabin. I wasn't sure if she had accidentally held it down, or she wanted to leave a record of what happened to her. I heard Gwen's heavy breathing, and the occasional rustling of her clothes. I imagined she was tucked under the desk, the long cord trailing from the wall. Sweat beaded my forehead and poured down my face. Seconds later, I heard something that chilled me. It was the clicking and growling noises I had heard earlier. There were dozens of different ones in the distance. These things had surrounded the tower. Jesus, I think I hear one on the stairs. Lock the catwalk door. Gwen, please tell me you locked the catwalk door. I said to myself, as long as she had the microphone in her death grip, none of my messages would reach her. She was smart, and I was hoping she did the smart thing. Peter, I don't know what's going to happen, but thank you for always being nice to me. Tell Harry the same, dumb jokes and all. But between you and me, the man has personal knowledge of the country's mood during the 2008 housing crisis. Tears formed at the corners of my eyes, but I smiled. Good one, Gwen. I'm not saying this is goodbye. I still have Pearl with me, but in case, Jesus, there are more of them on the stairs now, she said, her voice lowering to the point where it was barely audible. I'm scared, Peter. I don't think these things are from... The radio cut off. No noise, no static, no connection with her two-way. I pressed a button and whispered, Gwen, can you hear me? Silence. The cabin's two-way shorted out and died. I ran to my personal two-way, but knew I didn't have a range with it. She was alone, cut off from all humanity. I bolted up and ran to catwalk. The curtain of fog was inching closer. I thought about Harry, driving like a madman towards it with reckless abandon. He needed to turn back, but there was no way to reach him now. My heart ached. That man had a family. With nothing to do but prepare for the approaching wave, I locked the catwalk and moved the sparse furniture toward the open windows, not to stop them from coming, but to slow them down in the hopes that the military might have a plan. I pulled out my handgun, loaded it, and watch the fog roll toward me. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if any of us will get out of this alive. I don't know if this can even be stopped. I turn to the southern approach, miles from the darkening fog, and admire the landscape. It really is pretty up here. Story 5. The couple's retreat promised to fix our marriage. Now something is growing in my wife. Does anyone have any experience with a quickly progressing pregnancy? 2 nights ago, my wife and I slept in the same bed for the first time in a few months, and the next morning she woke up nearly bursting at the seams. Her words are garbled, sentences broken. Her eyes, really the last vestiges of emotion she has left, are scared, and I don't know what else we can do. The island connection is weak, so I'm not sure if this will ever reach the mainland. Never mind that it only processes so much at once. If this ever reaches you, I hope by then the issue has been resolved, but if it hasn't, please God send help. My wife's and my relationship has been rocky for about a year now. 3 months ago, she came in all ecstatic with a flyer for a couple's retreat in the Caribbean with a 100% guarantee to fix any relationship. Caleb, we get our money back if it doesn't work. Plus, look at those white sand beaches. I faked a smile and nodded. I had stopped trying a month ago when my wife, Sydney, had started sleeping in a different room and spending more time with her girlfriends. But what the hell? The $1,800 for flights and room from Illinois had seemed too good to be true. We escaped the last throes of the cold and took our trip in April. I allowed the tiniest bit of optimism to shine through, but remained largely skeptical of the whole affair. The flight was routine, and a car was waiting at the airport to pick us up and take us to the dock. The boat was sleek. The attendants were well-dressed, manicured, and attentive, giving us large pours of red wine and presenting us with fresh cheeses and chocolates. For the first time in months, I felt the stress unfurl itself from my shoulders, allowing myself for a second to believe in those vows we had said years ago. I was lost in the possibilities of our future, hopelessly unaware of how weird it was that we were the only ones on the boat. When we pulled up to the island, a tall, skinny man enthusiastically introduced himself as Counselor S with a handshake for me and a second, too long kiss on my wife's cheek. I felt Counselor S's eyes on me, searching for a reaction. At that moment, I won't lie, it felt weird, but I chalked it up to a cultural thing. Are we the first guests? I choked out as a shorter, bigger man carried our bags to a pristine white villa that Counselor S guided us towards. We actually are not very busy this time of year. Counselor S responded in a thick accent I couldn't quite place. I nodded my head, a little curious how this paradise wasn't packed to the brim. The villa was stunning. A chandelier was flanked on either side by grand staircases, with the entryway leading to an indoor sparkling pool. The kitchen was nearly the size of our entire apartment back in the U.S., and Counselor S introduced us to Miguel, our personal chef for the week. He led us to the master bedroom before leaving us. Sydney made herself comfortable in our bath, playing soothing music and lighting a candle as I collected my thoughts, setting aside the bouquet of chocolates, cheese, and wine that sat in the welcome basket on our bed. "Honey, come in," she teased, as I was lost in thought, considering the seemingly impossible nature of this place. Before I could acquiesce to Sydney's request, a knock and note under the door informed me dinner would be occurring in 1 hour on the beach. 2 small squares were attached to the note with an arrow that stated, "For best experience, let dissolve on tongue for truthfulness and openness." My hand hovered over the request. "Sydney, get out real quick and look at this." "Ugh," I heard her snarl. "Can't you just bring it to me?" The half-minute of silence finally caused the water to splash around, and Sydney emerged from the bathroom in a white robe. "What is it, Caleb?" She scoffed, our usual contentious dynamic returning to break the monotony of paradise. "Look at this." I beckoned her closer before pointing to the squares. She inched closer, carefully studying the note before she snatched it from my hand and placed the squares on her tongue. "What the hell, Sydney?" I screamed, hands pulling the note back and looking at her with shock and horror. "I want us to work, Caleb," she muttered before taking a loud gulp. She snatched the note back from my hand and ripped the other square off the note, pushing it towards my hand. I still had my sanity firmly in grasp, so I of course refused, still perplexed that she would do something so insane in my eyes. Caleb, for me, for us, this place works. It will work for us. But we have to take risks, do things we would in the outside world, trust each other. I stared back at her. Her eyes glazed, transfixed on something past me. I looked deeply, trying to understand the nonsensical actions of my wife. She then gasped, my eyes swiveling aimlessly, trying to detect the source of her sudden excitement. "Caleb, it's working. It's beautiful," she exclaimed. Her head bobbed up and down before her eyes met mine. "Well, what is—" I pondered. She let out a deep sigh and let a smile creep across her face before she jammed her hand forward and forced the square into my mouth. I felt the fabric-like substance slowly melt across my tongue as the world around me began to shift color. Story 6. Why were they watching my family? I posted about this on Let's Not Meet years ago, not long after the incident took place, but I removed the post as I was scared about being doxxed. It's been long enough now and my family have moved house, so I feel comfortable sharing it. But it seems that sub is no longer very active, so I'll share here even though it's unfortunately a true story. I grew up in a predominantly white country, and my family is white, but the neighborhood we lived in when I was a teenager had a large East Asian population. It was a nice middle-class neighborhood with big houses and good schools. Our house had a large window at the front, so the kitchen looked over the road. The kitchen had a breakfast bar where my family and I would eat in the morning or hang out after school or on Saturday nights when we had friends over. One morning as we were eating breakfast, my brother and I noticed a car stopped on the street outside our house. There was an Asian woman driving, a teenage girl in the front seat, and a younger teenage girl in the back. They stayed for about 15 minutes without turning the car off and then drove off, so we really didn't think much of it. But the next morning they were back. The same 3 people were idling in their car outside the front of our house. I suggested maybe the mom was teaching the daughter how to drive, and our house just happened to be where she stopped to teach her the rules of the road. It seemed plausible enough, but when we looked closer, we could see all 3 of them staring at us through our kitchen window. Maybe they're just looking at us because we're looking at them? My brother had hopefully suggested. Soon any thoughts we had of this being innocent or coincidence faded. Most mornings and some afternoons, the family was there, engine on, watching us. After a week of this, my dad had had enough and decided to go outside and ask them what was going on. Just as he got close enough to tap on their window, they sped off. We throw out all sorts of theories, sinister and not, about what they were doing, but nothing made any sense. I worked at the local supermarket at the time, and one day, a month or so after the visit started, my colleague approached me and said, "Hey, you live on XXX Drive, right?" When I told him yes, I did, he told me he'd just heard from a customer that 3 people had been found dead on my street. Of course, I immediately thought of the worst case scenario, that something had happened to my mom, dad, and brother, that maybe this family had killed the 3 of them. I ran off to the break room to call my mom. "We're all fine," she assured me. Apparently it was a family from South Korea. The mom put the 2 kids in a car in their garage and killed them and herself with carbon monoxide. It was a horrifying story, but I was just relieved my family were all right until the next day, when we realized a family who watched us from their car didn't come by. They didn't come the next day, or the day after that, and we realized they must have been the ones who died. After 3 days apiece, we were sitting in the kitchen when a car slowly rolled down the street and stopped outside our house. It was a different car, but I was hoping to see the family, because as creepy as they were, I took no comfort in the thought that a family who watched us every day died by murder/suicide. But it wasn't them. It was an Asian man, engine on, looking in our window. I shouted for my dad, who ran outside to talk to him, but the man sped off. That evening I was leaving work, and I spotted his car in the car park. I walked past it, and the man was asleep in the driver's seat. The next morning, he didn't visit our house. We thought it might be over. After school, I went to work at the supermarket and noticed his car was in the same spot. I thought it was weird, but I was a stupid teenager and lacked the critical thinking skills to do anything about it. I was running late, so I went straight into work my shift. By the time I finished work, the car park was filled with police and an ambulance. The man in his car was dead. My parents visited the local police station to explain everything that had been going on. The police told them the man was the father of the family who had been living in South Korea and had flown over for the funeral. He had also killed himself and was likely already dead the first time I saw him in the car park. No one knew why the family all took their own lives. No one on our street had ever met them or spoken to them, and the police had absolutely no idea why the family had been watching us. 15 years later, we still don't know, but it haunts us. Story 7, Mr. Sunshine. I used to work for the FBI. I did my share of drug busts and tracking organized crime, but I've only hunted one serial killer. In the early 2000s, my team and I were assigned to hunt down the serial killer known as Mr. Sunshine. As is the case with many serial killers, he gained the nickname through his MO. His victims, 15 that we know of, were always found in locations facing the east, and at times when they would be discovered at sunrise. And based on the reports from coroners, they were all killed at dawn, just minutes before the sun would come up. They were all found with their faces forced into smiles. It wasn't that he had mutilated them to create the smile. They had been found with their throats cut. Their smiles, though, had been determined to have been the result of the muscles in their faces somehow pulling their lips back into a forced grin that stretched literally from ear to ear, to the point that their lips had torn like rags. This would be odd enough, but unlike most serial killers, he had witnesses on multiple occasions. But when it came to describing his face, all they would ever say was that he smiled. Naturally, we considered the possibility that perhaps we were dealing with multiple killers, or that Mr. Sunshine was drugging the witnesses somehow. What was even stranger, though, was the fact that the victims had no apparent connection, nothing to connect an MO to. They were seemingly picked at random. Furthermore, their bodies all vanished at numerous points, even with an increase in security. My team, Agents Langstrom, Prescott, Martinez, Kilpatrick, Rosenkopf, and myself, had received a tip that Mr. Sunshine had been sighted in an abandoned warehouse. By this point, he had claimed the lives of 8 people, and we were getting desperate. So after getting proper clearance, we entered the building, guns drawn, intending to arrest or put down this creep. The second we entered, we heard it. The echoed laughter. We didn't turn on our flashlights, as the lights inside were on despite the electricity being cut off 2 years prior. Something Kilpatrick confirmed. He took Langstrom first. We had only traveled a few paces in, and were getting used to the light when it suddenly flashed off, like someone had flicked a light switch, then immediately turned it back on. It disoriented us at first, and even before I looked around, I sensed something in our footsteps, or more accurately, the absence of one pair. We turned, and there was no sign of Langstrom anywhere. No blood, no noise, he was just gone. We began getting worried, reporting back to HQ of our situation. We were told to proceed with caution. HQ then told us to begin investigating separate parts of the warehouse, 2 agents to search for our missing comrade, as well as potential victims/survivors, and the remaining 3 to continue our sweep for Mr. Sunshine. As Kilpatrick and Rosenkopf broke off from the main group, we continued traversing the warehouse. Martinez noticed it after we traversed a quarter of the warehouse. She looked from the back to the front, then pointed it out to us pale-faced. We hadn't moved further than 12 feet from warehouse's entrance, where Langstrom had been taken. As we noticed it too, we heard Rosenkopf begin to give his report, before stopping. Wah! His radio cut out and the light flashed again. We kept trying to call him, and at one point, Prescott, a close friend of Rosenkopf, yelled out for him. Our radios broadcast the same deranged laughter we had heard before. Then the light flashed again, and we quickly did a head count. Martinez, Prescott, and myself were still there. That meant We began calling frantically for Kilpatrick, to no avail. We radioed to HQ for orders. We received nothing but dead air, at least. So it seemed until a man's voice giggled childishly. Our professionalism left us then. We began screaming into the warehouse, demanding that Mr. Sunshine show himself. Whenever we heard laughter in any given direction, we would begin firing at it. Then the lights flashed twice. I kept my eyes shut, expecting to be taken like the others. But as I opened my eyes, I saw that I was still standing in the dusty, bright warehouse. Instead of relief, I felt my stomach drop, and any bravado I had left evaporated. I didn't need to turn around. I felt the absence of Prescott and Martinez. It was resignation rather than courage or hope that drove me onward. I wasn't holding out hope that I might be able to save my teammates. I just moved forward, going through the motions. Somehow, I managed to push through the oppressive light, and that was when I saw him on the catwalk above me. Mr. Sunshine was dressed in an immaculately white two-piece suit with a red button-up shirt and a pair of red gloves, as well as impossibly shiny black shoes. On the lapel of his jacket was an ornate pin of something I couldn't identify, and his face was hidden in the light, except for his toothy, equally shiny grin. I made my way up the metal stairs, aiming my gun at him and telling him to get on the ground. Then he raised his hand, and the light dimmed just a little, but it was just enough. Enough for me to take in the horror of what he had done. I understand now what the witnesses meant when they said they couldn't place any distinct features. They probably had their memories locked away from the horror. Above him hung my team, along with the other 15. They were suspended in midair, held aloft by this unholy light in various positions. Except I realized that it wasn't just their bodies he was keeping. It was them, their souls, their energy. He was keeping them, feeding on them, like how a spider saves its prey wrapped in silk. So too was he holding them wrapped in these infernal rays. And even now, they gazed down vacantly, forced smiles on their faces, and tears running from their eyes. Not knowing what else to do, I aimed my handgun at Mr. Sunshine and unloaded each round into him. Tears of grief, rage, and terror running down my own face. The bullet struck him, and blood began staining his suit. He staggered back, his smile turning into a pained grimace, and in an instant he was inches in front of me, his gloved hand around my throat. Lifting me up, I heard vicious words in my head, saying that I didn't belong up there yet. He told me that if I knew the truth about my team, I would understand why they were up there, and why the other victims were as well. He threw me off the catwalk, resulting in a broken leg. Just like that, the light vanished, and he along with his victims were gone. The radio came back to life, with HQ frantically demanding a status report. I was unable to provide a plausible explanation as to how my team had vanished without a trace, or why our radios had suddenly stopped working properly. It wasn't as if they had been turned off. They were receiving signals, but all HQ heard from my team was laughter. Their laughter. I was cleared of suspicion. There was simply no evidence pointing to me. I resigned after my leg had healed up. The trauma of losing my team, coupled with what I had witnessed, was too much for me. In the years following the incident, I often wondered what he was talking about, what the victims possessed that made them desirable to Mr. Sunshine and what I lacked. I studied up and down, looking in obscure places for knowledge on the occult that might tell me who or what Mr. Sunshine was. Then I received an unmarked envelope this morning. Inside was a letter addressed to me. Dear Sir, I hope you're doing well. I understand our last meeting was brief, and we had little time to spare. I'm sure you've had questions aplenty about why I let you go. The simplest answer was that you would mean what a minnow is to a fisherman or a fawn to a big game hunter. Your team and my previous smilers all had something I wanted. Pain. I suppose Kilpatrick never told you about the time his 4-year-old brother was swept away by a river current when he was 6 despite his best efforts to save him, and how it happened after they got into a childish argument that caused the brother to slip, or how Martinez accidentally shot her father thinking he was a burglar as he drunkenly stumbled back into her home when she was 9. And don't get me started on how Prescott left his son unattended in the supermarket for a total of 10 seconds, only for the boy to vanish. The others all had similar issues. You, though, you were remarkably ordinary, disappointingly ordinary. Oh, You had the odd death in the family here, a failed relationship there, but nothing that truly haunted you. But then you met me. I've consumed your thoughts like rabies to the nervous system, corrupting every thought you had. You barely smile, if ever, because it makes you think of me. You never leave your home, because you know I'm out here, and I'll show my hand here. You surprise me. Before then, I had been confident that you would be too consumed with terror and awe to pull the trigger. Perhaps I had grown too arrogant. In any case, perhaps a little reunion is in order. The anniversary is coming up after all. Why not meet us at the same place? You can decline if you wish, but it would be wonderful to see you again. And who knows, maybe you can do what you tried to do the first time. Or maybe not. You never know until you try. Regards, Mr. Sunshine. The handgun I've kept in my home has been sitting on the coffee table in front of me for hours, along with several mags, the letter, files on Mr. Sunshine, and a picture of my team and I. I don't know what to do. I want to move on with my life, leave Mr. Sunshine in the dust, but at the same time, I want to finally close the book on this. If I could make him bleed once, I can do it again. I just don't know. Something happened a few minutes ago that may be tipping my indecision. However, the broken radio I kept unbeknownst to the Bureau crackled to life, and I heard laughter on the other end. Laughter from Martinez, Kilpatrick, Rosenkopf, Prescott, Langstrom, and Mr. Sunshine. Story 8. Saw the Devil in Bulgaria. I do not really know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I haven't slept properly in weeks. Every time I close my eyes, I see it again, that black figure standing among the trees. If someone had told me I'd ever talk about something like this, I would have laughed. But here I am, typing this with shaky hands. It started on one of those strangely warm October Saturdays when the air smells like dry leaves and dust. My friend Petter and I decided to hike up Gendham Hill, just to drink some coffee at the top and look at the city. I've always liked that place. There's something heavy about it, old and alive somehow. The Turks called it Gendham, which means hell. My grandmother used to tell me that at night you could hear footsteps up there, but you should never ask who it is. I laughed back then. I would not now. It was around noon. The sun was strong, the air was trembling, and everything was quiet in a strange way. We sat on the rocks near the antenna and watched Plovdiv spread beneath us like a toy city. After a while, Petter went silent. He squinted and nodded toward the trees. "Do you see that down there?" he asked. At first, I thought it was a man, but the more I stared, the less human it looked. I could not make out any details. No clothes, no face, no reflection from sun. It wasn't just black. It was the kind of black that eats the light around it, like a hole in the world. Then I smelled it, burnt metal, mixed with something rotten. Petter cursed and said we should leave. I wanted to move, but my body wouldn't listen. The thing turned toward us, not like a person. It didn't move, just shifted, like space itself bent the wrong way. The air suddenly felt heavy. Everything went dead silent, no birds, no wind. Even the city noise disappeared. Then came the sound. Not really a voice, more like a whisper scraping against metal. I could not understand the words, but it felt like they were echoing inside my head instead of my ears. And then it was gone. No movement, no sound, just empty air where it had been. Petter was already halfway down the path, yelling at me to move. I finally did. When we reached the bottom, neither of us said a word. He looked pale, like he hadn't slept in days. Then he said quietly, "Don't call me. I did not want to remember this," and walked away. The next day I texted him. No answer. 2 days later I heard he'd been taken to the hospital. His mother said he woke up screaming at night, saying the black one was standing by his window. I haven't been the same since. At night, when I turn off the lights, I keep seeing something move at the edge of my vision, shapes darker than the dark. Sometimes, if I listen closely, I can still hear that faint metallic whisper, like breath on the back of my neck. And the worst part? Last week, I was standing on my balcony. You can see the whole hill from there. right on the top where we sat that day, I saw it again. A black figure, still as a statue, watching the city below. Maybe I'm imagining things. Maybe fear's just messing with my head. But deep down, I know one thing. That hill is called Gendum for a reason. Story 9. It's been a while since I've had the urge to write anything. Going through school, writing used to be the only way I could really express myself. I never really caught on with drawing or music. Sitting around and piling up drafts of things I'd never released just always seemed like the best way to unwind. But of course, the stress of growing up, keeping track of bills, performance reviews, car maintenance, all of the little things adding up, I fell out of practice. One day, I realized I just didn't have the spark I needed to put words to paper anymore. That bothered me, of course. But when I sat down and tried to convince myself just to write a rough paragraph, just to get back into it, the only things that came to mind were how I could spend my time better or do something that helped me get ahead, as if my creativity was a hindrance, and nourishing it was self-sabotage. That was until one day, scrolling through reels and shorts, I saw an ad for one of the first consumer-grade behavioral implants. The ad said it was a quick process, and because it was still in its infancy, the whole procedure would be cheap and include plenty of communication with the developers. I was obviously skeptical, so after a minute checking out the website, I decided against it and returned to my doom scrolling, lamenting over how many things got in the way of my self-expression. A week later, I lost my job. There was a company-wide financial audit, and my entire department was deemed redundant and not conducive to meeting shareholder profit margins. I was offered a small severance package, about enough to cover my bills for 2 months, and then I was sitting in my car, my desk packed into the backseat, with no idea where to go from there. That's when I decided I was going to do it. The website had sent one of those automatic emails to me after I'd signed up to look at the website, so I replied and set up an appointment. It only took a few days to have the paperwork submitted and filed, and before I knew it, I was sitting in a waiting room that was 5 degrees too cold, the smell of iodine and cheap air freshener filling my nostrils. The process was quick and painless. According to them, it only took about an hour. I asked to be put out, even though they said it wasn't necessary, and I responded incredibly well to the implant. There was a quick rundown of what it could do, how to adjust my feelings and mood from the app, and a number to call in case something goes wrong. They had set me to a default of high attentiveness and retention, so I understood perfectly well and was practically an expert by the time I finished their pamphlet. Simply put, I had 100% of my mind to allot to different aspects of my personality: creativity, emotional stability, attentiveness, etc. Easy enough to understand, especially with it all condensed into a user-friendly app. The drive home was incredible. It was like I was seeing the world for the first time. I realized my town had 10 different coffee shops within 3 miles from each other. I noticed the patterns in the medians where city planners had decided how many bushes would best fit in a 5-foot by 10-foot strip. And I noticed that my town had 2 libraries, of all things. I'll be stopping by the closest one later. I pulled over and adjusted my focus ever so slightly to creativity, and the colors of the flowers and trees seemed to be brand new hues that I had never even known existed. Even cars and pedestrians seemed to be entirely new entities, like blood cells keeping the body of the city alive. After I got home, I did my laundry, meal prepped lunch for a few days, and watered my plants, all the things that always seemed like insurmountable tasks by themselves, let alone all at once. Finally, I saw it. My notebook, the same one I had bought myself 10 years ago, one of my many attempts to push myself back into the saddle. I sat down, relaxed, and words started flowing without any effort whatsoever. The spark was finally back, and I was able to relive the joy of putting pen to paper again. I gave myself a little more creative juice, and analogies started coming to me as simply as breathing, finding it almost trivial to draw connections between almost entirely unrelated events. I kept writing and pouring my feelings out onto the page like I had never spoken a true word before, and I had finally found within myself to speak freely to a loved one, a little bit more, and I could practically feel the words. They were so real I could see them taking form in front of my eyes. Every word that I wrote was made real twice over. once in the act of giving it life by writing, and again when it presented itself anew to me, the words themselves being reborn in my mind as if they were the next line in a book I couldn't put down, one that I would stay up late into the night reading for the scandalous luxury of just one more page. I took a short break, tidying up around the house a little more to celebrate my rekindled passion, and give my writing the clean and comfortable surroundings they deserve. A little more. And it dawned on me that I had wasted so much time, so much effort, try to give myself a life where all I needed to worry about was making the work on time, and then all of my woes would be handled, so I could focus on what truly mattered, expressing myself. I had put my personality aside and snubbed the spark of my soul in an errant attempt to give myself near unattainable security and stability. Why had I done this? What goal was I attempting to achieve before I allowed myself the supposed luxury of enjoying myself? Racking my mind, I met with only half-truths and compromises. Perhaps I'm just not thinking creatively enough. I stepped away for a moment. I was getting stuck in my own head. I cleaned a bit and refolded my clothes. I had practically shoved them into my dresser earlier. Getting back into it. A little bit more won't hurt, I'm sure. 65% has allowed me to see the outside world with newfound beauty and respect. Who's to say 80% won't give me the ability to do the same with myself? I think I get it. I wasn't good enough. That's why I stopped. Everyone else seemed so much better, so much more natural. Writing always made me feel like a child wearing their father's suit. I wasn't one of the good writers, but I was playing pretend and acting like I was creating masterpieces up until it came down to showing anyone. Not anymore. I'm making a name for myself. I lost my job. I'm likely to lose my car and apartment. But I'm finally ready. Seeing the magic and beauty of my own writing acting itself out before my eyes has finally convinced me that I have a story worth sharing. I'm committing myself to my passion. I'm devoting myself to my creativity, and I'll strike out against the endless tides of visionaries, hoping to leave a mark somewhere they can see it. Just one more draft. It's almost perfect. It's been a while since I've had the urge to write anything. Story 10. I woke up under the stars. Searing pain. Cold air. Roaring wind. The sound of splintered wood. Blackness. I opened my eyes to a sea of twinkling light on an inky backdrop. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No birdsong. No crunch of leaves under passing animals. Not even the wind. Just the still hush of a forest that seemed to be holding its breath. I squinted to let my eyes adjust slowly, gravel biting into my cheek. Damp soil clung to my lashes, and when I wiped it away, my hand came back streaked with mud and blood. The smell of iron was sharp in my nose. I sat up, my breath ragged, and saw the state of myself. My hiking jacket was shredded, hanging in limp tatters from my shoulders. My jeans were stiff with dry blood, my boots scuffed nearly to ruin. I lifted my hands. One was whole, the nails cracked and filthy. The other. 2 fingers were missing at the tips, ragged edges raw and swollen. My stomach turned. My skin felt wrong. Cold, not the cold of autumn air, but a deep frost spreading under the surface, as though my blood had been replaced with ice. I pressed my palm against my chest and felt no warmth. My heart beat sluggishly muffled. My teeth ached. I probed them with my tongue and frowned. They didn't feel sharper, exactly, but harder, denser, like I could bite through a branch and not chip a single one. The last thing I remembered clearly was the trail, a short loop I'd hiked after work. I had only wanted air, a break from the fluorescent hum of the office. The sky had been flat gray, the forest already bare bone with late fall. I remembered the chill seeping into my jacket, remembered thinking, if I don't come out today, I'll be trapped inside until spring. Then, pain, a sudden impact, the snap of branches, a crash, falling, and then nothing, a blank wall where the rest of my memories should have been. I staggered to my feet, unsteady, my knees buckled. but I caught myself against the rough bark of a cedar. The forest stretched around me in every direction, unfamiliar. I tried to tell east from west, but the clouds hid the sun. My stomach growled, hollow and angry, but when I pressed my hand to it, I felt only that same unnatural cold. And so, without knowing why, I began to walk. Time blurred. Hours or days, I couldn't tell. The forest was endless, a maze of dripping branches and tangled roots. In the daylight, I grew weak, nauseated. The gray sky seemed to press down on me, every step heavier than the last. My skin grew clammy, my eyes sensitive. I curled beneath trees to rest, shivering in a cold that came from inside me. But at night, something changed. The forest seemed clearer, sharper. The darkness did not blind me. Instead, it revealed itself in layers I had never known were there. I could see the shapes of trees, the glimmer of eyes in the underbrush. My body steadied, my mind sharpened, the sickness faded. Still, hunger gnawed at me. It was the coyote I smelled first, rank fur, musk, and blood. I stirred awake to find it tugging at my leg. Teeth sunk into the soft flesh of my calf, as though I were already a carcass. The smell of my own blood hit me like lightning. Something inside me snapped. With a snarl I didn't recognize as my own, I lunged. My fingers locked around the coyote's throat. It yelped, squirming, but my grip was iron. I sank my teeth into its scruff, tearing, ripping. Hot flesh filled my mouth, copper and salt. I chewed, swallowed, ripped again. The frenzy blurred into red. When I came back to myself, the coyote was nothing but a ruin of bones and scraps. Blood smeared my face, thick on my tongue, and for the first time in days, I felt good. Oh, the sluggishness in my chest eased. The color returned faintly to my hands. The loose, unhealed wounds knit tighter. I flexed my shoulders and felt almost strong. But then came the nausea, a tightness in my stomach, swelling to agony. I fell to my knees, heaving, but nothing came. No bile, no blood. Instead, with a tearing spasm, I coughed up a dry mass that clattered the ground. A tangled wad of fur, splinters of bone, bits of hide. It looked almost familiar. I retched again, another pellet tumbling out. My throat made a noise as it forced its way up, a low, mournful sound, almost like the wail of a loon, broken into short howls. The sound startled me. It hadn't come from any human throat I knew. When at last the convulsion stopped, I sat gasping. The pellets lay in the dirt, grotesque. And then memory struck. Grade school science. Owl pellets. They looked like owl pellets. I wiped my mouth, trembling. The taste of blood lingered, both foul and intoxicating. The hunger had quieted, but it would not be gone for long. The forest was different now. I moved easily through it under the crescent moon, even through the heavy quilt of cloud. I could see every branch, every burrow. The night did not hide. It illuminated, and with it came the hunger again. An owl swooped low ahead of me, clutching a rabbit in its talons. The sight ignited something primal. I lunged, faster than I thought possible. My hands closed around feathers and fur. The owl screeched, the rabbit thrashed, and I tore them both apart with a ravenous joy. Again the fullness, again the sickness, again the retching, the dry cough, the horrible pellets expelled into the leaves. Each time, that same low howl shuddered from my throat. The forest grew quiet after. Too quiet. No rustle of deer, no chatter of raccoons. Even the wind seemed to die. A heavy silence pressed on my ears. I felt it then. The gaze. Something was watching. And then I saw it. A figure half hidden in the trees. Cloaked, tall, its outline wavering between human and monstrous. For a moment it seemed like a harpy. Wings folded around its form. Then like a man in a long tattered coat. Its eyes glowed pale. I froze. The figure moved. The next instant I was airborne, a massive force striking my side. I crashed into a tree branch with bone-rattling force. "Get out of my land," the figure shrieked, voice both human and not. Pain tore through my ribs. I staggered upright, demanding to know what it was. It descended upon me, talons at my throat. The creature's face was pale, hawkish, lined with age. His nose curved sharp, his eyes bright as stars. His mouth curled in disgust as he squeezed my throat. Then hesitation. Recognition flickered there. He dropped me. I crumpled to the ground, gasping. "Go," he said, voice tight. "Leave this place." "No," I rasped. "Tell me what you are. Why you attacked me." His wings rustled, feathers black as pitch. He looked away, then back, something tortured in his expression. "I'm sorry you are here," he said, "but your presence, I cannot abide it." "What the hell are you talking about?" "It is my fault you have become what you are now. I attacked you on the trail." The word struck like ice water. I remembered. Shadows overhead, the blow that sent me falling. "I should have finished it," he said, "but the sun was too high, my strength too weak. There were hikers nearby. I could not risk being seen." He bowed his head. "And so you live, half changed." I staggered back. "Half what?" His eyes glittered. "One of the night kind." The words hung between us. He explained in slow, deliberate tones. The night kind had hunted the forest longer than memory. They were not vampires, not as stories told, though some might call them that. "Yes, blood is food," he said, pacing, "but it is inefficient. Once the heart stills, blood thickens, congeals. Most of it is lost. Far better to consume flesh, rich with what life left inside, and cast out the waste." He gestured to the pellets at my feet. "As you have already discovered." I shuddered. "Most are territorial," he continued. "Hunters. Flyers like me cover vast ground, and so we must guard what is ours. Your purge calls led me here. To you. Why me?" I asked, "Why did this happen?" He grimaced. "Because I was careless. Because I let you live. Normally there is nothing left. We consume everything. When we do leave a body, it does not rise. But you," he shook his head, "you are among the rarest. What we call a blender. One who can live among humans, should you choose. It is not easy, but there are those who seem to have accomplished it." The word sat heavy on my tongue. Blender. Between two worlds, neither one nor the other. He softened just slightly. "My progenitor, my mother, they were like you, able to hide in plain sight. She wanted me to be like you. But after several years, I developed the feathers you see before you, and I became a danger to her. She abandoned me far from here. She had skill I never learned. Perhaps you can find one of your kind to guide you. They survive by cunning, not by hunting alone. Less territorial, more patient." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. His expression hardened again. "Because your presence gnaws at me. I feel hunger rising even as I speak. You must go, but I am too weak to make you. I hope that you will leave me to my solitude. Leave this land until spring, when life returns and prey is plentiful. Then perhaps I will have answers." He spread his vast wings, shadow blotting the sky, and then he was gone, vanishing into clouds. The forest was silent again. I stood alone beneath the clouded moon, breath ragged. My hands trembled, my stomach knotted with hunger and fear. Night kind, blender, predator, outcast. I walked, slowly at first, then faster, until the lights of the distant village shimmered faintly through the trees. A day's walk, perhaps less with my new strength. A world still within reach. But could I go back? Could I live among them? Smelling their blood, hearing their hearts beat? Could I sit in an office again, laugh over drinks, touch another human hand? The memory of tearing flesh rose up hot and sharp. The taste of blood still clung to my teeth. I clenched my jaw and walked on. Above me, the clouds shifted, revealing a sliver of moon. Its light washed my face, pale and cold. By spring, he had said, by spring I might find answers. By spring, perhaps I might return to life a little. Until then, I walked into the dark.